December football is here, and that means we're back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. I'm Kevin Bowen here on a Wednesday afternoon. Boy, this is a big one that's had a lot of news over the last 48 hours. Obviously, a ton of info out of Houston with busting of PEDs for two of their better football players, and the Colts seem to be getting a little bit healthier as well. And we'll get into the Anthony Castonzo, Rock Ya-Sin situations on this edition of Kevin's Corner. Again, we're recording this Wednesday afternoon, just left Colts practice, so have a decent idea of what the injury report looks like, but still not 100% out. It'll just be me on today's podcast. Hopefully we'll get Chris back next week, but appreciate y'all tuning in Monday, and thanks to Mark Dykton for stepping into the producer chair. We'll have Twitter questions as usual, 3 keys and a prediction. I think last I saw, Colts were favored by 3 in this one. And again, a Texans team that, like I've been saying for the past few weeks, guys, this is not your typical 4-7 football team by any means. I think Deshaun Watson's having the best individual season of his career. I know wins and losses matter, to some degree, but just how he's playing the quarterback position, pretty impressive for him, especially here as of late. So we'll get into that throughout the rest of the pod. And before we do get to Twitter questions, let's start with the Anthony Castonzo news. My assumption is he will miss multiple weeks. I don't know that for sure, but again, that is my assumption with him and that MCL injury. He is a guy that has often said that, recently he feels like he's in the best shape kind of his life, even that he's reached, I think he's 31 years old. So there's a possibility that you can brace that up and maybe he gets back a little bit sooner, but I fully expect him to miss at least Sunday. And so that, brings up the debate that we had a little bit on Monday, but I want to get into it more today of just how you replace him and exactly what the loss of Castonzo means to this football team, which, you guys have heard me talk about what I think he means. And as I've dove a little bit deeper into the numbers over the past couple of days, it is astonishing that an offensive lineman means as much as Anthony Castonzo means to the Colts, or to any football team, obviously. They are 2-11 without him in the lineup. They average 19 points per game without him in the lineup. And when you compare that to, other games throughout his career, and this is what, his 10th season, it's basically like taking away a player that is worth about 4 points per game. And if you look at the win-loss record, without Castonzo, you're about a 2 or 3 win football team over the course of a season. And with him, you're about an 8 or 9 win football team. I mean, think about that. One player, one offensive lineman means that much to your football team. Just here in this season, Castonzo's been in the lineup for the vast majority of the year, but obviously missed the matchup with Cleveland earlier this season and then missed, 3 quarters, I guess, on Sunday. With him on the field, the Colts have scored on 46% of their drives. Without him on the field, they've scored on just 30% of their drives. So I just want a few numbers to start off this podcast about just reiterating how important of a presence he is to them. I mean, we even saw it Sunday. Let's be honest. You have the 2 flawless touchdown drives to start that game, and then boom, you've got 7 straight empty drives once he leaves the game. And not only were these just empty drives, I want to say your longest drive was 15 yards. 15 yards. 7 series, folks. So, again, this is the most important player on your football team. He's one of the most important players to his football team in the entire NFL. So much debate about how the Colts should handle this week. I expect them to start LeRaven Clark again. I do. And I know that'll get a lot of people to turn the podcast off, 5 minutes into it. But that's my guess on what they do. I would not do that, but I guess this kind of break down a little bit of the different scenarios or, ideas that certainly people have asked me about. And yeah, I'm sure the Colts briefly thought about some of this stuff on Monday, but Clark leaving him in the lineup, they continue to be bullish on him. There's a reason why they didn't, make any other move. And again, this is their opinion, clearly not my opinion. they've always been very high on him. I mean, Ryan Grigson, to Chris Ballard. Chris Ballard was really high on the Raven Clark immediately. And I just totally disagree with the Colts line of thinking in that, oh, he had the best training camp of, his career and this and that. How can you evaluate him at that level when there's no preseason games? And when your edge rushers have been honestly pretty poor this season. I mean, the Colts edge rushing has not been good. Justin Houston has regressed majorly, especially over the past month or so. He gets a mop-up sack here or there, but his consistent edge presence is not there. And then we know full well, what you've gotten out of your backups. So I don't know how you kind of base that and feel, oh, wow, Clark looks this good in training camp. We don't need to make any other move. And honestly, it was long before that they didn't make any other move. We're talking March free agency. We're talking April draft, things like that. And I get it. Are you expecting the same level of play from Castonzo to Clark? Of course not. That's unrealistic when you look at the contracts and all of that. But I'm not expecting as steep of a drop-off as we've seen with him in the lineup, especially when you look across the field on Sunday, and there's Tennessee with a third-string left tackle in there. Third stringer. And you're able to rush for whatever, 200-some yards, and you're able to produce 45 points, the most points you've scored on the road in 12 years. That is a third-string left tackle. The Colts have a backup left tackle in there, a third-round pick who started 15 games in the NFL. Quesenberry hasn't started at all for the Titans, and yet you can't even move the football. So, again, I don't agree with it, but it looks like that's going to happen. I'm just to the point with Clark. It's like, why do I need to see him again? Why? I saw the Browns game. I realized Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett, but we've seen this story well before, just playing against arguably the best edge rusher in the league. And with him out there, your offense has really been probably at its worst all season. So that would be option one. And again, that's the option that I think they'll go with. Option two, Braden Smith or Quentin Nelson. This is the riskiest one, moving one of them over. And I know this sounds sexy and like, this is a good idea and blah, blah, blah. I don't think people realize how hard it would be for Quentin Nelson to move to left tackle or Braden Smith to move to left tackle. I mean, Nelson, I think, was a high school tackle, but man, I should know this as a Notre Dame fan, but I can't remember him playing tackle one time in college. Maybe some practice reps his freshman year, but he certainly played exclusively guard. Notre Dame had some great tackles throughout his time there, so they didn't really need him out there. And then Braden Smith, we know full well, was a guard for, I want to say, 39 games at Auburn, and then played right tackle just 2 games. So there were some questions about him tackle experience-wise. So I think it's risky because, this is the potential to kind of worsen two parts of your offensive line here. There's no guarantee that Quentin Nelson to left tackle, a banged-up Quentin Nelson, who is hurt, or Braden Smith to left tackle, that all of a sudden you're going to cure everything at left tackle, and then you still worry about filling in at right tackle or left guard. Do I think Danny Pittner, who I thought actually, going back and watching, I thought he played pretty good football outside of a few low snaps. I just don't think this is as easy as a lot of people think it is. This is not like other positions on the team where you're moving receivers around constantly, or you have safeties kind of doing multiple, playing in the box and then playing deep and things like that. Obviously, running backs playing very different roles and whatnot. What I would probably try is, if healthy, I would go with Chaz Green. Again, I've already seen what you have with Clark. I thought Green at least was better than Clark when he came in the game against Green Bay when you benched LaRaven Clark in that game. So why not? Might as well throw him in there. And no matter who you have over there, you got to give him serious help. But Green is a guy that started at left tackle, I think, for Dallas back 3 or 4 years ago. He doesn't have a ton of starting experience in the league, but again, I've kind of seen this story with Clark, and I don't think I need to see it again. But it just reiterates why it's so confusing to me just the lack of attention the Colts gave their offensive line depth, particularly at tackle this past offseason. So, again, we'll see how that plays out, how long it's going to last. But if I had to give my best guess here on Wednesday afternoon, I'd say Clark. A little briefly on Rock Ya-Sin before we get into Twitter questions. And again, I don't necessarily expect an outright benching. I mean, honestly, you really need them. I mean, you don't have a lot of backup corner depth. TJ Carey, yeah, if you play him 90% of the snaps, he's going to get exposed a little bit. We'll see. A couple people brought it to me, what about moving Carey to nickel and then Kenny Moore outside with Xavier Rhodes? Yeah, it's interesting, but I just think Kenny Moore is such a good slot player, especially against Houston. He's been so effective against the Texans. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily something that I would want to do. And I guess we'll see if can Houston challenge you with that second wideout. I think without Will Fuller, I don't know if they've got the wideouts to necessarily depth-wise challenge you there. But, has this gotten to the point now where, okay, Xavier Rhodes, you're going to have to shadow a Brandon Cooks because it has been such poor play, from Rock Ya-Sin on the opposite side. I think that's a fair question. And, with Rock, you guys certainly heard me talk about on Monday. The Colts thought he was a handsy, grabby corner from day one. I mean, we're talking first day of rookie minicamp. They thought he was that. So this is a little bit on coaching staff and a little bit on player development, both of those things, that you have not gotten that corrected here as we reach, whatever he is, 25 games into his NFL career, and he played so many snaps last year and, has continued to play a lot of snaps this year after that injury. So we'll see if they see a little bit of more TJ Carey. That's fine by me using more TJ Carey, but I still stand by when you're playing at Pittsburgh, when you're playing potentially Kansas City, which is the playoff started today, that's who you'd be playing, assuming Baltimore loses to Pittsburgh later today. That is something that I think you have to look at because you just don't have a lot of corner depth. It's not like you can just throw Rock onto the bench and never look at him again. And this staff is so bullish on him mentally and like his willingness to improve. I almost think there's a bit of a fine line between that of like he's pressing, he's almost trying too hard, if that makes sense. Like I just think you watch him and I just see him panic. I see a lot of panicky moves out of him. And is that a guy pressing too much? So we'll see how Rock bounces back this week. But I did want to touch on a little bit Anthony Castonzo, a little bit on Rock Ya-Sin here before we get into Twitter questions. All right, let's start with Ghost Visible. If the Colts had to go to emergency quarterback, who would that be? Oh, that's a good one. I think we've asked Frank Reich about this now 2 years in a row, and he won't say, but if I had to guess, I think it's Zach Pascal. Maybe a Trey Burton, but I think Pascal's the best athlete on this football team. So, yeah, but I mean, the Colts clearly have a plan in place. Reich was talking earlier in the week about how, they have an emergency wristband that they bring to games, like they know full well who would be that guy. Here's the plays they would run with that guy, things like that. It was kind of interesting. It's kind of been a popular question this week around the NFL. I saw the Jaguars said Laviska Shenault is their emergency quarterback. Boy, I'd love to sign me up for that week 17 to make that an entertaining football game. But with it, and this whole Denver thing, I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority with this, but Denver had to play. Just because it's quarterback, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden they get an excuse and they can delay the game a week. They screwed up. Denver blatantly admitted that they didn't wear masks in their quarterback room. And once it was clear that the outbreak was not there, this was a very isolated situation with, I think it was Jeff Driscoll testing positive and none of the other quarterbacks, testing positive, but yet being high close contacts, you still have to play the game. If this was 4 kickers, you'd still be playing the game. So I don't feel bad for the Broncos at all. While it is a bit of a confusing precedent the NFL has, I think with what we've seen with Baltimore, what we've seen with Tennessee is this. If there's an outbreak and you're getting consecutive days of positives being in the 4, 5, 6 day range, the game will be postponed. But if you have things controlled, and that's what the Colts, like Autry, Buckner, Taylor, they're all isolated incidents. You're going to play. And I think that the NFL has been pretty consistent with that throughout the year. All right, David says, if the Colts had not traded up in the second round for Jonathan Taylor and selected another player at a different position in their normal draft slot, what position would you have drafted instead? Would their record be any different? It's my guy David Thrush here asking this. That's a great question. You know, I was in the tight end kind of offensive tackle camp. And of course, hindsight's 2020, but clearly, running back injury has allowed Jonathan Taylor to have a much bigger role than you possibly needed. The Julian Blackmon injury has also allowed or I should say the Malik Hooker injury has forced a lot bigger role for Julian Blackmon. What would their record be? Yeah, I mean, Taylor I think was huge in the Green Bay game. I think you would have beat Minnesota with or without him, so I can't really go there. But I don't think he's won you any other football games by any means. And I am more of a kind of running back by approach guy, and I'm not a big investor in running back talent. So I think you'd be pretty similar to 7-4. Would an offensive tackle have saved you the Cleveland game? Would it have made you more competitive against Tennessee? Yeah, I'd probably point to Cleveland more than Tennessee. I mean, that Tennessee game, you weren't stopping Derrick Henry at all. So maybe one game better, but I don't think a whole lot. All right, Dad Talks chimes in. If the Colts and Titans both win their last 5 games, do the Colts make the playoffs? Plus, can they sustain a deep playoff run without Castonzo, depending on how long he is out? Thanks for all you do. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, if the Colts win 5 in a row, they're going to make the playoffs, certainly. And even if Tennessee won 5 in a row, you would just be a wild card team there. With that, I mean, honestly, I think 4-1 should definitely get it done. 3-2, I think it'll come down to who are the losses. If you lose a divisional game and lose the Raiders, that's really going to complicate some things big time there. But yeah, I mean, if Anthony Castonzo's out for the season, which it doesn't sound like that's the case, but they cannot sustain a deep playoff run. No, they can't. I mean, no, that's not happening. All right, Brad, is the T.Y. drop-off in 2020 due to Rivers not throwing it to him or T.Y. not being able to get open? Seems like Rivers never looks his way, but is it justified? Yes, Rivers isn't locking in on Hilton. I don't think it's as crystal clear as like the 2 scenarios that you've painted here, but I will say this. What we talked about in the offseason about Philip Rivers never really being a smaller wideout guy. I think that's contributing a little bit here. I mean, Michael Pittman, 9 targets on Sunday. T.Y. Hilton doesn't get a target in the first half. I don't expect that sort of discrepancy, with those 2 guys right now. But I think part of that comes from Rivers' background. I've been adamant about this all year. I think Sunday was another reminder of what you saw on that deep ball. I don't think this is necessarily a massive physical decline going off a cliff, Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne post-ACL thing. I mean, if Rivers leads him on the 50-yarder, it's a touchdown. Is T.Y. consistently getting open? No. But, again, he's never been a big catch guy. It's kind of always been those 4 or 5 catches that he just makes the big plays on. And I just don't know if this offense, it's more of a vertical passing game. But that's not saying a whole lot. It didn't sniff vertical last season. I also find it interesting, Rivers right now, probably on pace. I would have to double check this and look it up. I feel like he's probably on pace for a career low in sacks, which is obviously awesome for the Colts, but it's also concerning in this is a career low in sacks, and this is the passing offense and just the offense in general that you're getting. Can you bank on that next season? with him a quarterback. Brent, what would you say the chances are Pat McAfee is punting for the Colts this weekend? Boy, Brent, if I cared about my clicks like none other, I would hope 100%. But yeah, I'd go with a 3% for Pat. I think Pat's talked about it before. I know he's kicking balls in his backyard. I think he worries about that knee. He had some big-time knee issues there late in his career. And I do want to reiterate, because I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it a whole lot on Monday's podcast. I mean, what an incredible challenge and burden Rigoberto Sanchez had to be playing with on Sunday. It sounds like the diagnosis is great and successful surgery, and things are really positive on that front, which is obviously awesome. But still, just thinking about that on Sunday, and who knows, when doctors go in there for surgery, they could find something totally different. I can't imagine what that was like for him, and really punted very well in that game, man. And the Colts have certainly not ruled him out for this season. Who knows? That's probably the last thing, at least this week, that they're worried about. But as of right now, the Colts have not officially signed a punter. Sounds like they want somebody with experience. And I am curious just kind of how having a new punter plays into Frank Reich's aggressiveness. You always hear about those charts the Colts make with their analytics staff each week. The fact that you don't have an all-pro punter, because in my opinion, Rigo is that caliber of a guy, how that plays into his aggressiveness and maybe a willingness to go for it even more on fourth down. Jordan, what are your thoughts on Kenny Stills? Saw he clear waivers and could sign anywhere. I always like Stills, but I don't see the Colts doing it. I don't. Man, that Houston wideout group. You talk about that loss of Fuller is huge. We saw it on Thanksgiving, but I think I saw a stat. He's 5th in the NFL in yards per route. I mean, that not having Fuller out there bumps your safeties up a couple yards every snap. And now Watson's thrown to a wideout group that, it's Brandon Cooks and Kiki Kuti and a bunch of random dudes. Rob, I'm glad Rob asked this. How much of Grover Stewart's recent breakout success can you attribute to the rival of Buckner? Not insinuating that he doesn't deserve a new contract, just curious. No, Rob, that's a fair question. Certainly some of his production, I would say some of his single teams have come from Buckner's presence. Did you guys see that CBS graphic that they showed up during the game about Buckner? I mean, it is incredible what this defense has done with him on the field versus without him on the field this season. But going back to Stewart, and we didn't have a chance to get into this too much on Monday, so I'm glad that you brought this up, Rob. What I like is he's 27 years old. He's stands for kind of the high character, high effort, lost 40 pounds, great work ethic, just checks all those boxes. But I love his production he gives you at nose tackle. This is a guy that is not just eating up space like an Al Woods or an Obreo Franklin, or I'm trying to think of the other big wide bodies the Colts have had in recent years. He gets off these blocks and makes plays. And that's not always a given. This was a 4th-round pick. It's not like he was a undrafted free agent. 4th-round pick, there was some talent there that obviously the Colts felt like they could develop. So at 27 years old, I'm perfectly fine with this move. I like that you align him and Buckner in years. I think that's really key. He's going to be playing with Buckner. Buckner's what, another 4 more years? And now Stewart's going to play on a similar contract length. And you're keeping those linebackers free. And boy, we saw it Sunday. When you don't keep those linebackers free, you're going to get eaten alive. So I'm good with it. I think where people, and this will be something we get into a lot more in the offseason, what's really interesting to me is the cap situation for the Colts. It looks like a team from 1985 almost. You're paying a guard a ton of money. You're paying a center a ton of money. You're paying a defensive tackle a ton of money. Linebacker's going to get a lot of money. Like, that's not how the present day NFL really looks. And I'm curious how the Colts will handle that moving forward. All right, Isaac says, which scenario would you choose? Give up a 2020 13th overall pick and a fourth rounder to get Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow pre-injury, with the knowledge of them already able to handle the next level, or give up a 2021 first and a second and a 2022 first to get Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence. Awesome pod, Kev. Thanks. Boy, this is a good one. I like these. Okay, so 13 overall and a fourth. Boy, that's not a whole lot to get Herbert or Burrow at all. Obviously, it looks like a lot when you have Buckner in there. Versus a first this April and a second and then a future first to get Fields or Lawrence. Boy, I'm probably going to do the first one. I think the fact that Herbert and Burrow have shown it on some level in the NFL is so reassuring to me. Again, I like Fields and Lawrence. I'm not like totally obsessed with them, to the point of like, oh yeah, unquestionably, you got to make that move. And look, I know what, okay, you don't have Buckner, and that is a worry, but I'm all about starting the clock. All about starting that clock. And, devil's advocate will say, well, look at Kansas City, really stable, winning seasons before Mahomes got there, could ease him into that situation. Yes, I get that. But I also think, you got to trust Chris Ballard's ability to draft. And I know defensive line success hasn't been great, but if I can get Herbert or Burrow into that building, and then even in that draft, I still would have had 2 second-rounders last year and a third. And then obviously all my draft capital for this year, that's pretty darn good for me. Daniel, Colts have a narrow path and leeway between success and failure, whether it's depth or game plan. Between recent injuries of COVID, the window is almost closed. At this point, it may be better for them to burn out and get better draft picks compared to being the 6th or 7th seed to either lose in the first round or maybe the second round of the playoffs. What do you think? Boy, David, that's a bit harsh. I will say, like, what do you want as a fan? Like, I think it's a very small portion of the fan base that agrees with you, Daniel. Now, I don't think it's an outrageous point, but, part of me is like this, man. This is a crazy COVID year. I'm just happy to watch football every weekend. Like, Notre Dame gets their game canceled against Wake Forest yesterday, and I was pissed. Like, I want to watch football. I don't care if, like, oh, yeah, it's probably better for health reasons and you could get some guys hurt and, what. No. Like, I want to see my team play and I want to see my team win. And I totally get that as a fan. Now, some people in the same fan base have a much more of a long-term look at it. And they're like, I don't care about a first-round exit. I don't care about going 9-7, 10-6. If you're mediocre, that's hell. And, like, it's tough to get out of that. So I see both sides of it. Part of me thinks anything can happen in the playoffs in 2020. Who knows what the hell January will look like. It's a miracle that we've made it to the month of December. I was always bullish on the NFL getting this done, but still, it is pretty crazy that they've played as many games as they have. All right, Andrew. Hi, Kevin. I hope all is well and you enjoy your Thanksgiving with your family. Same to you, Andrew, and all of our listeners out there. 12 weeks into the season, do you feel like this Colts team is capable of competing with some of the better teams if they were to make the playoffs? We've seen a lot of really good football from the Colts, as well as some head-scratchers, too. Andrew, I do think they can compete. I have questions, though, about can you do it multiple weeks? Can you do it away from home? And I believe the margin for error has gotten pretty darn thin with your health and certainly where you are standing-wise in the AFC. You've got little margin for error record-wise down the stretch. And like we said, if Anthony Castonzo's injury lingers or Ryan Kelly gets banged up again or, Buckner gets hurt or something like that, I don't see this team capable of getting it done. in January. I don't love starting out on the road, which now it looks like that's what they would be doing. People thought it was kind of funny. I had a couple people reach out and say I was too critical on Monday about the defense. And first off, I thought I made it abundantly clear the personnel losses that the Colts had, and could keep that in great perspective and saying, we're going to talk about a 60-minute football game, and we're also going to acknowledge that as long as the Colts don't have 3 of their front 7 guys missing, I don't expect that to be the norm moving forward. Like, you have to be able to isolate individual games, evaluate them in their own bubble, and then also have the perspective to know, okay, how does that correlate to a 16-game season? How does that correlate to the playoffs? And I thought we did that on Monday, but again, I had people give me some pushback on that. But for those that can't be critical about that defensive performance on Sunday, I mean, what the hell? 8 yards per carry in the first half? 35 points allowed in the first half? The most in franchise history in Indianapolis. The most. And there were no short fields. I mean, holy hell. If we can't be critical, then shit. This is the National Frickin' Football League. This is not the Turkey Bowl. This is not skee ball at great times. This is the National Football League, folks. Again, we can be critical, and then at the same time, acknowledge that, yes, you are missing personnel, but to give up the yards per carry and the points at that level, it's still embarrassing. Louisiana guy. Hi, Kevin. Quick question. With Sunday's disaster, how do you see our chances to get in the playoffs or better win the division? Honestly, yesterday was painful. I guess we got this earlier in the week. And it shows how much Buckner and Autry are missed. Yeah, I mean, I think better, just slightly better than a coin flip to get into the postseason. Now, to win the division, you're going to need some help. Tennessee's got Cleveland at Jacksonville, Detroit at Green Bay, and at Houston. Yeah, I don't think that's an extremely easy slate by any means. The Colts have at Houston, at the Raiders, home to Houston, at Pittsburgh, home to Jacksonville. I think the Colts probably have a slightly easier schedule, but still, you're going to need multiple game help from Tennessee. So, yeah, I would put it probably, I don't know, 65% that they make the playoffs via the wild card. And, it would be extremely disappointing if they didn't make the playoffs. Extremely. Tyler, I'm not sure I've seen fans of a 7-4 team more willing to jump off the cliff and fire everyone from Ballard to Reich to Eberflus. If you told me this offseason we'd be 7-4 and wins against Tennessee, the Vikings, and the Packers, I'd sign up immediately. Great articles, Kevin. Well, Tyler, welcome to fandom. Welcome to fandom, man. Expectations can be wild. 7-4 at this point of the year, I think it's fine. I think what people are disappointed by is the embarrassing loss in Jacksonville week 1. And the effort given on Sunday. Matt Eberflus said that the effort and the loaves were great, like not very high number in that game. And you're like, wait, what? So that just means the execution and you just got whipped that bad? I think that's where fans are disappointed. It comes from that, the biggest game of the season, and you played like that and got beat that bad in your own building. Again, given the personnel. And the week 1 loss, I think, really frustrates people. And then also the fact that we mentioned so much during the offseason, the Castonzo, where's the offensive line depth, where are you going to have it, and that being 2 big reasons for 2 of your 4 losses. I think that's frustrating for fans, which is fine. I mean, fine. Fans should have high expectations. And are the Colts going to be competing for the division in late December? That's up in the air right now. And I think that frustrates some people. Jordan, thoughts on playing Kenny and Xavier outside and TJ Carey in the slot? Seems like that would be better than leaving Rock outside and wouldn't be a giant drop-off at the slot position. Jordan, first off, I think that's a decent idea. I disagree with it wouldn't be a giant drop-off. Kenny Moore is a playmaker from that slot spot. Blitzer, tackler in open field, what he's doing, in man coverage. So I do think it's a drop off, just because Kenny Moore sets such a high bar at that position. But you know what? That's something to keep an eye on. It is. Connor, personally, I don't think the Colts will trade up for a QB, especially since they have Jacob Eason. I think they'll go one more year with Rivers. If the Colts go that route, would it be fair to say the Colts most likely take the offensive tackle of the future in round 1 and go cornerback in round 2 or linebacker? I don't see them take another receiver round 2, 3 years in a row. Connor, yes, if they run it back with Rivers and Eason as the backup, my gut says that, yes, offensive tackle makes the most sense in their eyes. Again, I think quarterback, but in their eyes, I think that's where you would go. I don't see them taking another wide receiver round 2, 3 years in a row. I think you got to be honest with yourself and look in the mirror, and I do think Chris Ballard's done a nice job with this. Just because you've invested so much in wideout and missed, or at least, missed is probably harsh. I should say not gotten the exact return that you were hoping for. That doesn't mean you ignore it. That doesn't mean that you write it off. And again, I think Ballard's done a nice job with that on the D-line. Basham is a miss. You come back the very next year, you draft Kamoko Toure. And then you draft Ben Bannigu the next year. It's something to where just because you invest a lot of those high draft picks in that position doesn't mean that you write it off. That's unfortunate, but you got to know when you make your mistakes. Craig, hey Kevin, awful game that frankly reminded me of the Colts D late last season. Where has Kamoko Toure been? Did he even play this week? We got no pressure on Tannehill and could have used him. Yeah, just 4 snaps for Toure in that game. 4. He's got 10 snaps on the year, 14 snaps on the year. 10 against Green Bay, 4 against Tennessee. I'm not shocked. 4 snaps is really low, but I'm not totally shocked by it because I did feel like it's not a great Toure game. Matt Eberflus said this week he really feels like more is coming from him. And he should get more opportunities, very, very soon here. All right, we got one from Primus. Hi, Kev. I don't think we can glean much from Sunday's loss, but even with several D-line absences, Ben Bannigu was still inactive. Rock Yacina's putrid, period. So would you rather have Montez Sweat, 6 sacks and ascending, or Rock Yacine and Ben Bannigu? Interesting here, Primus. Boy, it's kind of been a while since we've brought up that trade in 2019. Was that what it was? Straight up, you trade back from 26 to 34. You got the extra second rounder. I guess that's what it was. Boy, Sweat's got 6 sacks this year, so he's on pace for about 10. I think he had 7 as a rookie. Damn, that's really good production for your first 2 seasons in the NFL for a pass rusher. Yeah, probably as of right now, I would, from what I've seen. And that's ultimately how we would judge that trade. We've talked about that a lot. That's ultimately back in April 2019. So I remember Joey and I doing that podcast late on that Thursday night when the Colts traded back and Montez Sweat, who I think was red flagged by a lot of teams with that heart condition, was taken at 26 by Washington. All right, Hillary chimes in. Kevin, I have a pod question. How is Le'Raven Clark still on the team? If he fills in, the line just seems to fall apart. Seems like we need a different backup strategy. Hillary, I am fine with having Le'Raven Clark in camp. I was fine with him being re-signed. My issue is you don't draft a tackle really in the last 2 drafts. You drafted Jackson Barton in round 7 2 years ago, and he's not on your roster. And then you did nothing in free agency. It was unrealistic to expect Joe Haig to come back. He's going to go compete for a starting job somewhere else. So that's my issue. Clark on the team, okay, fine. But where is the competition that you always hear preached? Where is that? That was not there at tackle. Chaz Green didn't play a snap in the NFL last year. Andrew Donnell didn't play a snap in the NFL last year. Carter O'Donnell comes from the CFL. Like, that's not competition to me. And the Colts knew. I mean, they knew they were fortunate with their offensive line depth. And they admitted that last season, like not having to use that their O-line stayed so healthy. I will say I thought Danny Pentner, going back and watching it, really good job. The low snaps are an issue just because this offense is so predicated on timing. That's why it is an issue. But as him handling kind of just purely blocking, I thought he held his own. I mean, first career start at center. We're talking tight end, D end in college or in high school. We're talking tight end, offensive tackle in college. Jordy, is it safe to say DeForest Buckner could somehow be even more important than any of us thought? Boy, Jordy, when I go back at CBS Graphic, basically he is when Buckner's on the field, the Colts allow 2 yards. I think it's 2 yards less per carry and 1.5 yards less per play. I think that's what the graphic showed, and I'm including because I added the Sunday stats onto that without him. And what was astonishing to me is every single turnover the Colts have had this year, Buckner has been on the field for. Like, they've played some 180 snaps, I want to say it is, without Buckner on the field, and they haven't gotten one turnover. And they've got, 17, 18, whatever the number is. And he's been on the field for all of those. You know, Buckner's presence, it's kind of, to me, it's the opposite of Justin Houston. If you only looked at Justin Houston's stats, like sacks, tackle for loss, you would say, okay, that's fine. What do you have, 10 last year? Like, people were calling for him in the Pro Bowl. I wasn't one of those just because I didn't feel like he brought it consistently quarter 1 to quarter 4, snap 1 to snap 70. Buckner brings it, but yet his tackles for loss and his sack numbers aren't necessarily at the level you would think. But yet his impact, when you look at the team stats, it's like, holy smokes. I mean, it is absurd how much better this defense is when he's on the field. All right, 2 more here. Brooks, been wondering this for weeks, but why won't the offense take advantage of matchups they have against other teams' corners? Big one that comes to mind is the Ravens game with Michael Pittman in the slot. I mean, to be honest, Brooks, I don't know if you're watching the same team, but I guess, like, what are those advantages? Like, I don't know if the Colts have this superior talent advantage at wideout versus opposing corners. I think it's a much more of a schematic thing. Yes, you do. I want to see Pittman, I guess, show a little bit more just beating press and posting up guys. I do want to see a little bit more of that from him, but I just think the Colts struggle a bit. Just individually, wideout versus corner matchups. All right, and we'll conclude with Bailey. How do you see the AFC South finishing up? Tennessee sitting at 8-3, 3-1 in the division. Only lost to the Colts. And we're 12 weeks in, still haven't even played Houston. And there's still plenty of football for Houston to catch a groove. Yeah, I mean, Houston's not winning the division, let's be honest. I mean, 4-7. I can't see that happening. Yeah, I'll probably go with Tennessee to win it. But I don't think their schedule is a pushover. I just don't think the Colts can, put 5-0 pressure on them, which is probably what it would take, honestly. Maybe 4-1 to really pressure them there. All right, let's get into 3 keys and a prediction. Colts, Texans. It is weird. We talked about this. This is scheduling quirk. You play 2 divisional games in 3 weeks, like you just finished up with Tennessee, and now you'll do it with Houston. Of course, caught some great breaks earlier in the week with the Will Fuller, Bradley Roby thing. One thing on Roby, I mentioned Fuller and his importance. The Texans have played I think I had this right. They've either won the game or been in one possession of every game but one since week 2. So very competitive since week 2. The one game was Green Bay, and Bradley Roby played 3 snaps. So that's a big loss that they have at corner there. So, yeah, 3 keys. Okay, make Deshaun Watson use his progressions, or go through his progressions, I probably should say. He can beat you. He might be the second best quarterback on the schedule. And he's a lot different than Lamar Jackson. I thought Justin Houston made a good point of this today. He's stronger. He kind of bounces off guys a little bit easier than just a pure runner that I think a lot of people categorize him as well. But without Fuller, without Randall Cobb, without Kenny Stills, question marks about David Johnson, make him use his progression. You're going to see some RPO stuff. You're going to see some college. They're going to use a little spread as well. But the Colts have had success against Watson, especially pressuring him. So I think that is a big deal. I would say key number 2 is just, what does that left tackle situation look like for the Colts? How much help are you given there? What's the balance of help and skill, guys? I think you can run it pretty successfully against Houston. They're a poor run defense. I think you can run it, especially up the middle, on them. And I think you have to do that. You've got to alleviate some of the pressure off of Phillip. Think about that Cleveland game when you didn't have Castonzo. You got behind, got in obvious passing situations. Tennessee, you got behind, you got in obvious passing situations. If you can stay in phase more, that's going to alleviate some of the pressure off for Raven Clark. All right, and the key number 3, tap into the T.Y. Hilton magic. This is a Romeo Crennel has been in Houston since 2014. So, think about it like that. He's been there for that long. He's seen the T.Y. Hilton a whole lot. So, you've got to try and tap into that. They're going to double him. They're going to treat him like he's a bona fide number 1. That should open some things up for other people. It is absurd, again, what T.Y. Hilton has done against the Texans. He is their daddy. Looking up the stats this week, he has averaged 21.1 yards per reception when playing at NRG Stadium, and 12 yards per target. Just throw the ball towards him, and you're going to get 12 yards. That is, it's just mind-boggling how much he's torn up the Houston Texans. So try and tap into that. Try to build off that second half. Might just not be outright T.Y. Hilton numbers, but does that open things up for the tight ends or some of the other wideouts for your run game? Things like that. So I think Colts get it done. You got to get off to better starts. They've allowed, I want to say it's the most first half points in the league since week 5. So you got to get off to better starts. But I'll go with Colts 27-24. The loss of Fuller, the loss of Roby is big news. And we'll see how the rest of the week plays out. Jonathan Taylor's back. DeForest Buckner, Danico Autry have a chance to be back. But it seems like the Colts are getting a little bit. Ryan Kelly back. Bobby Okereke didn't practice on Wednesday, so we'll see how that plays out. But this is big. Right now, the Colts have a 54% chance to make the playoffs. With a win, that would climb to 73%. A loss, that drops to 32%. So again, divisional wins, conference wins, hell, any win right now just means a whole lot. Means a whole lot. All right, everybody. Colts, Texans, Sunday, 1 o'clock, CBS. We'll be back Monday. If Chris can't make it, we'll have Mark Dykton fill in again on the podcast. And then, again, we'll get into this Monday, Wednesday rhythm here for quite a while. Everybody have a great weekend. And you guys know where to find me. And we'll have updates on 1075thefan.com. See ya.